families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hi, my name is Lisa Rothfus, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist here in Austin, Texas. I have over 36 years of experience working with parents, children, and families, and I specialize in reunification therapy and treating issues of alienation and estrangement in high-conflict families. In my practice, I treat families struggling with mild, moderate, to severe alienation, and I even offer a 4-day reunification intense intervention for families suffering from severe alienation. I worked for 9 years in the Texas family court system as a guardian ad litem and a parent coordinator, or a co-parent counselor, and a court-appointed reunification therapist. And I offer various YouTube videos, workshops, and trainings on reunification and the treatment of alienation. But today, I want to talk with you about an issue that I feel affects the majority of people I work with in my practice, and that is the issue of trauma. Next year, in October 2023, at the Family Access International Conference, we will be focusing on the truth about the impact of trauma on parents and grandparents who've been alienated from their children and their grandchildren. I have seen firsthand in my practice how alienation can cause parents to feel desperate, angry, and traumatized, not just by the rejection of their child, but also by the court system, which they often feel has failed them, and the long-term financial impact of maintaining a legal fight to keep a connection to their child. A common myth about trauma is that you only experience it after a life-threatening event. In fact, trauma is defined in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual as actual or threatened death or harm. But professionals like myself that work with alienation every day have a very different perspective. We would define trauma not so much by the event itself, but by the emotional and psychological effect it has on the person. Parents experiencing alienation are often anxious, agitated, angry, afraid, and grieving, trying to manage a life event that is ongoing and causing them significant emotional and psychological distress. My presentation at the conference, titled Creating a Path Forward, Cultivating Growth Out of Trauma, will focus on how to help participants make sense of the complexities of trauma, explore the various types that affect alienated parents and their children, the effects on the mind and the body, and the most effective forms of treatment, and the 5 major misconceptions about trauma. And finally, we'll discuss the dual nature of trauma, how it can be cruel and destructive force or a vehicle of transformation, how it can lead to a newly defined psychological state called post-traumatic growth, and its ability to cultivate resiliency. I hope you will join me for this presentation, as I look forward to sharing this information with you. And please be sure to check out my other videos on my YouTube channel about reunification and dealing with parenting issues around alienation. You can reach me at lisa@rothfus.com or go over to my website, lisarothfus.com. I look forward to talking to you.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Families Divided TV. We are really blessed tonight to have 3 of our top experts and professionals that work in the field of alienation, and we've got some great questions for you. We're having with us tonight Dr. Sue Cornbluth, Lisa Rothfus, and of course, Attorney Chris Smith. And Chris doesn't want to whack there, guys. But we're real blessed to have them. We're so grateful for the work that they put in for us. And we're real happy that they have such a care and concern for all of you guys that are alienated. And this episode is going to also help many professionals. So I do hope you'll share it with those that are involved in your cases. It's much needed. And take notes. It's going to be very important. So we're going to start out with our first question. And we're going to ask, Chris, we're going to let you start this first one. What kind of team do you need to surround yourself with to move through alienation?
Well, this is probably the first question that every litigant who's going through this process needs to ask themselves is who do I need for this process? And that, if they're lucky enough, and I say lucky enough, if they're lucky enough to identify the fact that they're a targeted parent before they get started, then they can start to make some decisions as far as who they hire from the beginning. And so what I mean by that is a lot of clients that might come into an attorney's office, that alienation hasn't started as of yet. They're early in the process. They're just now deciding that they're going to go through this divorce process, or this custody issue has just arisen. And they may or may not see the fact that alienation is an issue in their case. And so that's why I say that if they're fortunate enough to have identified it before they have to make that decision as far as who they hire, then they know going into it, they want to work with folks who have experience in the issue of alienation, who take the issue seriously, who definitely validate the legitimacy of the issue, and then can start to put the pieces in place to try to combat that. And so if you've identified that you are a targeted parent and that the other parent is trying to alienate you, then the first thing that you want to do is start with an attorney who is going to be able to address the issue with science, with the studies and the literature that are out there, understand the players, understand if you are working in the area of alienation, there are a few, it's not a real big world in terms of the science. And so you should know the academic studies and the players who can help you as far as this issue goes. Then once you've identified the attorney, that attorney probably has some expert witnesses that they've worked with. These are going to be psychologists who are familiar with the issue, that are well-versed on the issue, who testify. And there are a few that are testifying regularly about this issue. So you might want to start with an expert witness. But if you're really attacking this from the perspective of, I want a relationship with my kids, what do I need to do? Then the most important aspect of this is going to be the therapist that's going to be chosen to work with you as it relates to the reunification process. And what I mean by that is there's going to be at some point a discussion with opposing counsel, probably with the guardian ad litem, as to what do we do. And I was giving everybody a little bit of background on a case that I have that's hot and heavy right now. I got into the case about 2 months ago, maybe less. And when I got into the case, the kids were showing up to my client's home, locking themselves in the room, not coming out, barricading themselves in the room. There's a guardian ad litem involved and even opposing counsel. We all have had this conversation, and no one can really put their finger on the basis for that. And so we have made the decision we were going to go through the process of identifying a reunification therapist, bringing them into this process and trying to identify what we can do. We're early in that stage. That's about all I want to say at this point. But that reunification therapist is really critical to the question of what's going to happen moving forward. And if you don't have someone who knows what they're doing, they can make the situation worse. And that's probably the most important thing that your attorney can do for you when you're going through this process, is to try to make sure that you are working with someone who knows what they're doing as far as the reunification process, and is not afraid as an attorney to maybe put some parameters and some guidelines in place with an order before this process starts, so that we kind of have some parameters and some guidelines as far as reunification therapy, so that it doesn't turn into just therapy and treatment as far as the issue, and you're really working towards reunification. And so I would say, from the attorney's perspective, you want to make sure that you've got a qualified reunification therapist, first and foremost, who knows what they're doing and knows their role as a reunification therapist. And then 2, as an attorney, you're going to want to have a psychologist who's going to be able to testify down the road as to the issue of parental alienation, who knows what they're doing and is qualified and is going to withstand a challenge as it relates to their expertise, and can work with the parties involved. And so those are the things that I would suggest right off the bat that you're going to want to look at. And so that's why I'm excited about tonight, because as someone who definitely is in need of good reunification therapists in my neck of the woods, it's good to work and hear from experts who actually do it and do it well and know what they're doing. And so I will kick it at this point to whoever wants to jump in there and follow that and say, here's how you actually do it.
And I just jump in really quick. As you guys are talking about this with parents, can we also add grandparents in there as well? Because a lot of them are also in cases too. So I failed to mention that to y'all earlier, and I apologize, but that is important. But thanks so much, Chris. That was great. Thank you.
So I think when you're putting a team together, that it's really important that you understand what you are trying to achieve. Okay. Are you trying to achieve custody? Are you trying to achieve reunification? Are you trying to achieve a financial gain from your divorce or whatever you're going through? You really have to know inside yourself what it is that you are looking for. That will determine who you're going to contact in order to put your team together. And, like Chris said, one of the things that is very important is that you do hire an attorney that is very familiar with parental alienation. There are many attorneys out there that say that they understand this process. But when I've talked to many attorneys who say that they do understand what alienation is, they really don't understand it. And they're litigating a lot of these cases as they would other family court cases. And you can't. This is a different beast altogether. So it's important to determine first of all, what kind of attorney that you want representing you. And I hope that you will do your research and that you will ask the attorney, how many cases have you dealt with in alienation? What do you recommend me doing here? Do you recommend that, we come to a settlement, or we go to trial, or mediate, or collaborate? There's all different ways to do this. So it's most important that you understand what you are looking for first and what you want to accomplish. Then I think it's important to establish a team for yourself, because you're going through all of these emotional changes that you are not used to dealing with. And if you're not in a place where you are able to process through your emotions of anger and loss and despair and panic and fear, you're not going to be able to show up in court or for your child in the best way possible. So I suggest that you then hire a therapist or a coach that specializes in alienation cases. There, like Chris said, there are few and far between. There's not so many of us. So when you go on to Google, search for parent alienation coaches, parent alienation experts. Not every therapist is trained in parental alienation. Even if they have a family and marriage therapist, a therapy license. This is a niche that people have taken on their own and have gotten training so that they can help you. So you have to be really aware of that. You also have to find someone that can help you release your feelings, as I said. So a lot of times people in the field that do coaching to try to reunite you with your children will also coach you on your emotional feelings. And that is critically important. A reunification therapist is great to have, okay? If you can find one that really does understand the issues that you're going through, that they understand that it's going to be very difficult to connect with your ex, that they're a difficult person, that they may have personality disorders or tendencies. They also have to be trained in knowing how to instruct you and help you on how to reply to your child or what to send out to them before you even come in the room together. So there's many different people that need to be on your team, but you need a team that will work together and support each other in getting you the help that you need to move through this. And I always recommend that the person that's doing the reunification therapy, works with the lawyer so that they can keep the lawyer abreast about what is going on. And that is the best way that I see that you can build a team around you.
Thank you. Lisa?
It's interesting because I think a lot of times when you're looking for a therapist, you need to be able to ask them, like you said, what is your, what kind of special training have you had in this area? How comfortable are you working in high conflict situations? Because a lot of therapists are really afraid to talk with lawyers. And you have to be able to collaborate together. The whole team has to be able to talk and don't see the lawyer. The therapist doesn't want to see the lawyer as their enemy. No, they're all working together to help this client. I think a lot of people want to choose a therapist because it's on their insurance. And again, I think this is a big mistake because unfortunately, like Sue was saying, there just aren't that many people out there that specialize in this and they want to take that shortcut. And I think that can dramatically impact your ability to have a successful outcome. So I always encourage people, like you said, do your research. I find there are not very many people on insurance that have trained and are specialized and are comfortable working with lawyers, working with the court system, and being involved in this process. And if you don't get the right person, it's almost as if you have made your situation worse.
Yep.
So it is really key. And so do the research. Oftentimes you can come to court with some names or some people that can be discussed, and everybody can, talk, okay, that could be a good person to use in this case. I think it's really good to actually have that kind of research and be ready to go with that and work with your lawyer.
That's great. Thanks, Lisa. And also we have on our Family Access fightingforchildren'srights.com website, there's a webpage there with professionals who are understanding alienation. So you can use those, and they're listed by states and countries. So that can help as well. I know we don't have everybody, but those are the ones we're aware of. So we're going to go to the second question. The pros and cons of having an individual therapist for children when doing reunification therapy or dealing with alienation cases. Why having an individual therapist for children can be problematic. How to handle this if one has been ordered for the court and we must have them be part of the treatment collateral team. How do we explain the rationale for delaying individual treatment to judges and lawyers when doing reunification therapy? When would it be helpful to have an individual therapist on a reunification cases? I know this is a lot into one, but it pretty well everybody.
That's like 20 questions in one question.
Whatever.
Can we just start with the first sentence?
We're gonna be here all night.
Just the
No,
pros and cons.
I think Lisa should start with this one.
I
I
was
know
gonna think-
that
I was
her and
gonna
I,
ask her.
we
Yeah.
have the same kind of feelings on this topic. And
Yeah.
so I'm going to let her begin.
That sounds great.
Well, I think the court systems are often looking for ways to help these families. And I think one of the go-tos is let's get everybody into individual therapy. I think that's unfortunately one of the worst routes that you can take. And so sadly, everybody gets into individual therapy and nobody gets into family therapy and really works on the whole dynamic in the system. So that's a big issue. And so what happens is a lot of times when people come to me for reunification therapy, everybody's got a different therapist. All the kids have a different therapist. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So, I mean, we've known for a while that these cases are very high conflict. They tend to split professionals as much as they split families. So we call that sort of the fractionalization process that occurs. And you really need to like protect against that when you're putting a case like this together. So what I say to people is, it's often best if when I'm first starting a case with a family, if all the children don't go to all their individual therapists for a while, that I need to start building that relationship with that family and with those children. And what happens is also, if the individual therapist doesn't understand about alienation and doesn't understand about the family dynamics, they've only ever talked mostly to the child and maybe one parent, then they really don't understand the whole total picture of what's going on. And they start to make decisions or agree to things that they just don't really understand about the family. And that's where it can start to make the situation worse rather than better. They don't realize that this child maybe is being manipulated or is being coached or is being told things that are false narratives. And so that gets very complicated. And I say that I think it's better if we can not have the individual therapists see the children at first. But there are plenty of times when the court has already ordered that. So now you have to work with that. And if you are in that situation, then I think it's very important that the reunification therapist is communicating with all the individual therapists and is helping them understand that, look, guys, the court wants us to do this process and move this process along. That means I need your help with this child to be sure that that's what we're all doing. We're all giving the child the same message. If we're giving the child a different message, like, well, you can do it if you feel like it message from the therapist, and I'm like, no, this is what we've been asked to do by the court and we need to move this along. All we've done is recreate the same pathology in the case that's already there for the child in the family. And we don't want to do that. We don't need this child to come out of that feeling actually more confused. So I say, if you are a reunification therapist doing this, be sure that you collaborate, obviously, with all of the professionals, help them understand the goal. You sort of need to take charge of the team and get everything moving forward.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, I'll pick up on that. So let's remember what individual means. Individual therapy means I'm helping this individual, okay? This is not an individual problem. This is a family dynamic problem. And the thing that I see the most that saddens me in many of these cases is when a child or a teenager or even an adult child that has gone through alienation goes to see an individual therapist who is not trained in understanding how alienation affects a family. That oftentimes they will say to the child of any age, it is your choice whether or not you want to speak to your parents or not. And to me, that is not doing this child any justice, nor this family. And I have read about this and seen it and heard it from so many clients that I have worked with. It is not helpful. We want to heal families. That's the business that we are in. Of course, we also want to heal individuals. But healing individuals is helping them to grow from things, learn how to resolve conflict, forgive others for mistakes, not hold grudges. So that's where I see and find that individual therapy is not a good idea for children of any age when we're going through this. I think it's a great way if the therapist or the coach is trained, because I work with many children of alienation also, as well as targeted parents. And they often tell me sometimes that, the therapist said it was okay for me not to talk to my parents. And I'm saying to myself, really? Boy, that must have been, made you feel good about what you were feeling. But did you ever think about how this is affecting other people in the family? And so I think individual is great to get your feelings out, but I do not think it is a place for the therapist to tell the child, yes, you should talk to your parents, or no, you shouldn't talk to your parents. I think it's a place to explore how what happened in the family hurt you, but not to give that extra advice on that.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, as the attorney, therapists are oftentimes the burr in my saddle more times than not, and I probably wouldn't want to be a therapist on a case that I'm involved in. I don't fault therapists for saying no, I'm not going to get involved in a custody case. One of the things that I think is critical to this conversation is that not every therapist recognizes the legitimacy of alienation as a real issue. And
Right.
that's a kind of an overarching theme to the whole topic, is whether or not the professional recognizes it as a legitimate issue. The next issue that I've seen is that therapists by their nature are bent toward validating the child's statements, and they're there to validate and to address whatever the child is expressing. They take and they'll tell you under oath, I'm not there to question what the child is telling me. And so they become a voice of confirmation for whatever that child is expressing, whether it's a valid expression or not. And so if you add a therapist to the mix in the middle of the process, you're just creating another validating voice for whatever that child is feeling. And maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but in the mix of of custody litigation that's problematic. Therapists rarely appear neutral. One of the problems that I run into time and time again is by the time you're getting a child to a therapist, more times than not, one parent has exhibited control over that child in the litigation, whether they've been given custody in the case or not. They're the ones who are going to take that child to therapy. They're taking the child. Typically, they've met with the therapist. Typically, they've talked to the therapist. The child's going to therapy with that parent every week. And the parent may not be going into therapy, but they're definitely dropping off and picking up. And so as far as that child is concerned, that therapist and mom or dad are in, concert with one another. And it creates another validating point. And so neutrality is critical in that process. And it's rare that it's ever followed. I mean, it's rare that you see a therapist who in the middle of a custody litigation says, I want mom to bring one day and dad to bring the other, and that's the way it's going to be. And I want to make sure I've met with dad just as many times as I've met with mom, and I'm not going to talk to mom without dad involved. That's a very rare thing, even though it seems like it ought to be a pretty straightforward thing. So that's problematic in the middle of it. The other issue that I've run into is that too often therapists, whether they are qualified or not, have a hard time differentiating their role between expert witness and therapist. And that creates a lot of problems within the litigation, especially alienation cases, because, they get right up to the line of testifying that they believe the child's allegation. And especially and I litigate a lot of false allegation cases or alleged allegation cases. And all too often, the therapist who's seeing that child is validating that allegation, is advocating on behalf of that child. And you really start working against that therapist as much as you're working with them to try to address whatever issue is there. And so when you take a case, let's say you have 4 children, and let's say you have a guardian ad litem who says, I want every child to be seeing a different therapist, which I've had this. And then you have a reunification therapist in the mix, and then both parents have their own therapist. So what we've just now done then is we've created, 4, 5, 7 witnesses in this case, potentially, that all have different opinions and different ideas and different thoughts, and they're all telling something different. In this case, it's a recipe for disaster. And so it's definitely my desire, whenever you see a reunification case and when you're working with a reunification therapist, don't throw more counselors into the mix at that stage.
Too many cooks in the kitchen is what I always say.
Without question.
It really can end up backfiring. It doesn't help. It hurts. I also want to say on what you said, Chris, sending the kid to individual therapy also sends a message to that child that he or she is a problem. And the children are scapegoats a lot in what's going on. I think you all will agree with this, that the issues are between the parents. It's not what the child is doing or not doing. And then they end up feeling like, well, something's wrong with me. That's why I see individual therapy for a child, which I did a lot of early on in my training, is just a place for them to have an outlet about their feelings without judgment.
That's good.
I wonder too, sometimes if judges, and you may know more about this, Chris, I always get the feeling they think if they add in more individual therapists, somehow they are helping the situation. And so sometimes I feel like we need to educate them as well, that, it isn't necessarily, like you said, helpful to have 7 different therapists working on a case together. And you need to have somebody at least coordinating it if you are in a situation where you have to do that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Thank y'all for that. That's all really, really good. Our next and last question is, What should a parent or grandparent look for in a professional coach, therapist, or lawyer? If they're needing help with alienation cases, what qualifications should these professionals have? And what questions should they be asking these professionals to see if they are right for their case? Chris, we're going to let you, so you're going to start out first this time. You haven't started.
I do? Oh, is it a competition?
Whatever.
I don't care whoever talks about this, but you know what? I'm glad you called on me because we haven't talked about grandparents, right? So let's talk a little bit about that tonight because I know that's something close to your heart, Elaine, as well, and I do work in that also. I think we talked a little bit about already what we need to look for in a therapist or a coach. I do coaching and I do that for a reason. And it's because I think you need a lot of strategies and action plans and tools and techniques and new language that a grandparent or a parent needs to learn in order to reconnect with their child or grandchild. I also think it's important to understand that you also need empathy from the person that you are working with, okay? It is extremely important that the person that you choose to work with understands your feelings about what has happened to you and the pain that you have gone through and has compassion for your specific case. Not every case is the same. Grandparents are hurting just as much as parents in this situation are. You've waited your whole life to be a grandparent, right? I mean, it's one of the joys of life is to be involved in your grandchild's life. And when you don't have a great relationship with your own child, that's going to prevent you from connecting with your grandchild. So I think you need to find a professional that understands that dynamic. And that is what is most important to me when you're trying to look for somebody. I would also ask them, how many years have you been working in this field? How many families have you reunited? What is your approach to doing this? What is different from you than somebody else? I mean, these are all great questions. And it's important that you feel connected to the person that you're working with, because this is not an overnight sensation, guys. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And make sure that you really do, that you feel like you can build a safe connection with the person that you choose to work with.
Okay, Lisa, thank you, Sue.
Well, when you're looking for a good therapist to work with you on your team, I think there's some qualifications you definitely want to ask about. And I think one of those is obviously, have they had any training in alienation? There's a lot of really good people out there to learn from. And if they can tell you some of those people, then you probably know they have done at least some training in that area. Structural family therapy, that's huge. They need to have some training in structural family therapy because the dynamics in these families are just completely upside down and they have to be reworked. And I see cases like all of the time where that is not understood and the parent who is been targeted is not being helped to be put back into a position where they are truly parenting that child. And so again, you're just not getting anywhere in the case if you don't. I think the therapist also needs to have some training in trauma and treatment of anxiety issues. There's a huge amount of anxiety that goes along with reunification therapy and having these people get in a room together. There's so much coaching that needs to be done before you get them in a room together. And I think I often will talk to my kids, well, how will we handle this if you're feeling really anxious or upset? They all need to be coached and be ready. And some have experienced trauma. So you do also have to help them with that. I think a good reunification therapist needs to also understanding about parenting skills because a lot of people parent differently. I think you need to understand the parenting skills of each parent and how that kind of interaction is affecting the child. There needs to be some discussion about that. And oftentimes I have to tell my parents, look, you gotta go work on your parenting skills. Here's some things we're going to do to help you with that. Because if you don't change this, that dynamic is just going to continue over and over again. You're going to keep stepping on landmines that are causing your child to get so upset. So we have to deal with that. And then grief and loss. It's like Sue was saying, you really need a place to, let out a lot of the feelings and all of the things that you are experiencing as you go through this. So a good reunification therapist is going to understand also high conflict, working in the court system, dealing with lawyers, and feeling comfortable with that. And, that's not always easy to find. And when you first are, I think another really important thing to ask the therapist if they're going to work with you is, how do you start your cases? Like, how do you begin? Because I think a lot of times the parent is very worried that everybody's just going to come together and get in a big room and start talking. And I'm like, oh, no, we are not doing that. I'm going to meet with each one of you and get to know you, understand your perspective, your concerns. I want to understand this as best as I can before I ever put people in a room together. And then I will start trying to figure out, what is the best way to negotiate this case. And if anybody ever says, no, well, we're just going to, you're just going to start meeting with a child, that's a big red flag. You don't want to be doing that right away. You want to be sure, like some people are so anxious. Well, I just want to see my child. And I'm like, I know you really want to see your child, but if I don't get you prepared in the appropriate way and you get in there and it blows up, that's just going to make your situation worse. So I think these are the type of things you want to be asking.
Yeah, I'll just jump in on what Lisa said there. And it reminded me that a confident therapist is as valuable in a litigation case as anything. And what I mean by that is someone who understands their own process and is confident in what they're going to do in that case. And that's as rare as finding a reunification therapist is finding a confident therapist who will enter into a custody case without a lot of fear and trepidation as to what's going to happen to them in that case. And so that for an attorney, finding a confident therapist to fill that role is very important. And then also for an expert witness. And I say this, it took me probably, 15 years of practice before I really started developing relationships with alienation specific therapists or therapists who had, who were known names as it relates to disclosures of children and different things like that. And so when you're talking to attorneys who, are going to be representing you in what could probably be a process that's more than a year long, at least. First thing is what others have said, empathy. Make sure that you hire someone who is going to be empathetic to your spot where you are at that point in time. Most people have gone through something themselves, whether it's in their marriage or in their own family or in something in their life that should provide some context for them to compare, what you're going through as a client and be able to relate to that. And so if you get the vibe that, man, they're just not relating to me, that should be a red flag. I don't care if you're a therapist, an attorney, whoever it might be, they're just not, they just don't get what I'm saying here. They also need to, I think it's attorneys we're trying to sign clients up, to just, we want to represent good clients. For me though, it's really important for me to be able to step into the shoes of that client and feel confident in the argument I'm going to have to make when the time comes. And if I don't feel confident in that argument, I'm not going to be a good fit for that client. And so for where I sit as the attorney talking to clients who are going to be looking for an attorney, you need to make sure that attorney feels comfortable going and making the argument. You also need to check and see, is this an attorney who wants to settle my case? Or is this an attorney that's going to want to try my case? Are they willing to try my case? How many trials has that attorney had in the last 6 months? The last year? You know, how many trial days have they been in trial this last year? These are valid questions. I think these are questions that, you know, when I was younger, I might take offense to, but as I've gotten older, I appreciate, you know, how have you ever handled this? I started getting more and more questions like that as it relates to domestic violence. You know, what's your experience in this issue? How do you feel about this? And the same thing goes for parental alienation. You know, where are you on this? What's your experience level with this? How much have you written on it? How much have you briefed on it? Have you ever taken the issue up on appeal? These are questions that I think you are fair game for any attorney who you're going to be looking to hire. And if that attorney is not comfortable answering those questions, that should be a red flag. They should be comfortable with who they are, what they're doing, and the work they're doing. And so that needs to be something that I think every client needs to take into account is this attorney comfortable? Are they comfortable in what I'm asking them? Are they, you know, if I get a chance to look at their bookshelf, you know, do they have books that look like they're relevant to what I am going to be going through? You know, if they're not somebody that's read up on the issue, if they're not someone that's studied the issue, if they're not someone who has dug in and done the homework, then you may not be comfortable with them when the time comes. And so those are things that I would look at. As far as, you know, I'm glad you mentioned grandparents, Elaine, because I just spoke at another conference last week on grandparent issues, and it's something that I think is more and more and more and more prevalent. And I think that it might be easy for someone to look at me, for example, and go, well, you really don't relate to grandparent issues. Well, I can tell you very much that I do relate to grandparent issues because I have parents who are grandparents that if something happened to me, what would their relationship be with my kids? And I think about those things. And, you know, so being able to just have those conversations and be able to relate to how these things work in the real world, I think is critical as you go through this process. And so when you're interviewing people, whether it's therapists, attorneys, experts, whoever that may be, they need to be able to have a conversation with you that is not cold. It's truly empathetic. They have the emotional intelligence to understand the dynamic, and that this is something that they are comfortable with. Because I'll tell you this much. And as I talk to dads and a lot of dad groups and organizations, there seems to be more and more attorneys that are just afraid to get out in front on this parental alienation issue. And they're afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to call it what it is. They're afraid to say it. Judges are all too often laugh you out of a courtroom. There are a lot of experts that just think it's just rubbish, and they think that this is a lost cause from the beginning. And so, you know, as you interview folks, it's really important, I think, to validate their feelings on this. And are they willing to go try that case for you? Because I can't tell you how many cases I've gotten into. And I know that Dr. Sue, Lisa, you've probably seen this as well. You sign up an attorney, you feel real confident about it. You get right down to the time to get ready for trial, and they just don't want to go try that case. And so it really, those are things that I think as you go through this, that if you make those decisions early on and you ask the right questions, you're not afraid to represent yourself in the process in terms of stand up for yourself, talk to the attorney. Just today, I had a very heated conversation with a client that we're in a parental alienation case here in Oklahoma City. And it got real heated, and I can get heated, and I know I can, but that client and I think we by the time we were done, we were like this, and it really, I think, that's a critical element to any case when you are going through the trenches. You know, you've got to be able you almost have to be able to fight with each other and still feel good about it and feel comfortable that, look, I would not be fighting with you. I would not be raising my voice like I am if I did not care about your case. If I didn't care about what we were doing, if I didn't care about the outcome, I would just as easily say, look, I'll see you, and so, but that's, I think, what every attorney, is going to give lip service to that to some extent. But I think that if clients know what they're looking for and they're confident in the case they have, they should be able to find somebody who's going to fit with what they're going to need.
Yeah, that's great, Chris. Thank you. We have answered all of our questions. You guys were phenomenal at this. It's awesome. And I do want to reiterate a little bit of what Chris said. We have our upcoming conference, our fall conference in October. Many have already registered, and we're really happy about that. But we're going to be speaking, or you guys are, all three of y'all will be presenting, and some great presentations. I mean, super. I honestly, because, you guys know me, I'm always straight up and say whatever, I feel about things. But I honestly think this conference will be the best ever, and much needed, more than any we've ever done. Alienation, the truth regarding the trauma and the abuse. And I'm telling you, you guys have got some super topics, and I am extremely excited. We have five more professionals registered this weekend, and really excited that they're getting in there to want to learn more from you guys on what it's all about. And I also want to say on our website, again, we have like a questionnaire type thing you can give to professionals when you're looking to hire somebody. These are the questions you want to ask them. And that's on our website. And right this minute, I cannot think of which page it's on, but if you need that, email me, I'll find it for you. But it's there. There's plenty of articles. You could spend days on that website. So look at those as well, both professionals and alienated family members. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before we close?
I'll add one thing, because you just triggered something in me that I want to say, is that you did not have a lot of choices along the way in terms of, maybe your divorce or losing your grandchildren or not being able to talk to your children. So you have a choice now when it comes to putting your team together to support you to get through this. So really do your research and make the choices that feel good to you. That is the best advice that I can give everybody tonight.
Thanks, Sue. Lisa or Chris, do y'all have anything else?
Well, I agree with Sue. Doing your research is absolutely key. And the more you take responsibility for learning about it yourself, I think the better off you're going to be in your own process. So I agree completely with Dr. Sue about this.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll just say that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. No matter where you're at in the process, it will get better. It may not in the end be the perfect outcome, but there is light at the other side of this thing. And so don't hesitate to, and I'll say this, and I'll finish and I'm done, but I don't know that I've represented a parent yet in a case that did not go for them, who regrets making the effort that they did to have the relationship with their kids.
Yeah,
they have. And that's something that I think is lost in the noise, is that, if you don't win, if you don't get the custody, if you don't prove the alienation, it's a lost cause. Well, your 10-year-old one day is going to be 30. And I tell this to the clients a lot, and they're going to be curious, and they're going to look back, and they're going to want to know, what actually happened 20 years ago. And what did you do to try to protect that relationship with me that you had? And they can either look back and see that you made an effort and that you put everything into it that you could, or that you just walked away and you saved your money and you saved your time and you just said,
Yep.
look, that's it. And I think that you have to make the decision as to whether you're going to be the type that fights that fight or you're going to be the type that walks away. And everybody has that choice. And so I like fighting for the people who want to fight.
That's a whole topic for another panel discussion.
And we are definitely going to do another panel with you guys. I know we talked about it before, and you guys are great together. The chemistry is wonderful. And I think Chris is going to take the next one. He wants to talk to you mental health people. And so that's the way we're going to do our next one. So I see the mouths opening. But I also wanted to say, too, in the 11 years I've been doing this, I really feel like you really want to get it right the first time, because many times these judges, we're going to be having Bill Eddy's doing a Families Divided that he's already recorded. That'll be coming up, I think the month after this, or the month after, I can't remember. We're in July now. But what he's going to talk on is court bias. And sometimes these judges, they're having, like he said, 3,000 cases a year. Yeah. And what are they going to do? They're going to be in a hurry a lot of times, and whatever they see is wrong the first time, they're just going to work on trying to fix that, and they really don't get the whole picture. So it is important, vital, that you get the right team, that you get people that understand, that are going to fight, that are going to get it out there to fight and get the information needed out there, because you may not get another chance to make an impression with this judge. So it's really important that you get the right team. And again, we've got a professional page on our website. We've got that list of questions to ask. Everybody we have on the professional page that I can know of right now are all good. That I've taken some off that weren't. I found it. I'll be honest with you. As soon as I find out and check it out, they're gone.
Elaine, when are you not honest?
Well, I try to be straight. Y'all guys know me well. I'm gonna tell it like it is. Sometimes I don't want to. I do it. But we just love you guys. I just thank God for all three of y'all. I cannot tell you. I pray for you all every day, because I know how much y'all love these families and these children, both parents and grandparents. We get many grandparents. We've got 2 grandparents in the UK who schedule their vacations and times around our monthly webinars. Their own, and it's 2:00 in the morning there. They don't miss. They're there every time.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And
I was going to say, all I heard from in the last couple of weeks are grandparents that are going through this.
And they're ready to fight, and they need to.
And they are.
The grandparents' rights in their states. And that's very important with the attorneys, that they understand that too. So, but anyway, we have been a long time on this tonight. It's been worth it. You guys are awesome, and love y'all all so much. And thank you for all that you do. And I am proud that you are a part of Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights. 2 of you are on our board. and I'm also very proud that you're working with Families Divided TV. And thank y'all. I can't wait for the conference in October. Y'all do such phenomenal work. Chris, we're going to get you more involved, so get ready, dude. And you can ask Sue and Lisa, you might want to go hide. I'll work you to death, but it's important.
I think it's important that, that the people that are involved with Family Access know that they're going to now get very direct advice that you can apply and run with and use it. And I think it's great, the changes that are being made here, because that's what people going through this want and need, right? They need the direction and the advice of where to turn to and who to turn to and how to do this, because they don't know. Nobody knows who this happens to, what to do. This is not a normal occurrence that happens in families. And so therefore, places like Family Access are so important, so you can get the answer to questions that many other professionals may not know, So thank you, Elaine, for putting together Family Access.
And Families Divided has really, I am amazed at how well it's doing, but that just absolutely shows the need of these things and finding new people that I didn't know before who do understand alienation. I'm hitting the bushes nearly every day looking for new people. We just got Chris on recently, and he's at the top of my list now for attorneys. I mean, I just think he's like the bomb. I just really am impressed with Chris. So we're really happy with the ones we're getting in, and God's sending us the new people. Thank y'all so much. You guys are great, and those that are watching this, please share this with those who you're working with as mental health professionals or as attorneys. They need to understand these things. They're too important. I mean, your family is more important than anything in this world, that you be able to, and don't give up. I'll say this one last thing, and I thought of it a while ago. I cannot tell you the number of adult children who have gotten up with me and said, I wish my mom or my dad, whichever the case, had not given up on me, and when you hear these kids hurting your feelings or whatever, please get it. It's not about you. It's about those children and your grandchildren. That's what the alienators are telling them to say. That's not them. So don't give up on these children. It's not their fault. So know that they live in it 24/7 and you don't. So if it hurts your feelings one time, suck it up and move forward. So that's what we need to do. But anyway, we're going to get off. We thank y'all so much tonight, and soon you guys will see this panel again. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you again. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, Elaine. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Sadly, too many know the pain and trauma associated with parental and grandparent alienation. Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, will present an important international virtual conference on October the 13th through the 15th, 2023. The conference, entitled Alienation, The Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse, will feature world-renowned experts in the field of alienation. You'll join the conference event coordinator, Elaine Cobb, and moderator, Megan Hunter, as they introduce you to keynote speaker, Dr. Edward Kruk. Plus, you'll hear important presentations from Dr. Joshua Coleman, Lisa Rothfus, Dr. Mary Alvarez, Chris Smith, Bill Eddy, Dr. Noel Hunter, Dr. Sue Cornbluth, Dr. William Burnett, Megan Hunter, and Jordan Traeger. Join the many attendees already securing their spot for the conference entitled Alienation, The Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse. For information, visit familyaccess.info for all the details. The special conference is being hosted by Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, Steel Partners Foundation, and PASCA, Parental Alienation is Child Abuse.
In next week's episode of Families Divided TV, Claudia Obias and Rael LaPena discuss Parental Advocacy 101 with IC3.